Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most common and, believe it or not, one of the trickiest elements in web automation, the drop-down menu.
Okay, so let's dive right in. You see a drop-down menu on a website. It looks so simple, right? You just click it, you pick an option, and you're done. But for an automated script, it is not always that straightforward. This one little element can cause a ton of headaches if you don't know its secrets.
And that's because not all drop-downs are created equal. In fact, you can think of them as having three totally different personalities that have evolved over time. And each one needs a completely different approach to automate it successfully. So here's our game plan. We'll start by figuring out how to tell which type of drop-down you're even looking at. Then we'll break down the automation strategy for the classic kind, the modern ones, and the really challenging hidden drop-downs before we wrap it all up in your ultimate playbook. So how do you know what you're dealing with? Well, it all comes down to a single clue you can find just by inspecting the element's HTML. And this one little detail, it's the key that unlocks absolutely everything. And these three species, you could call them, the classic, the modern, and the hidden, can all be identified by that one little clue in the code. So let's see what it is. And here it is. This is the whole shebang right here. If you inspect the element and you see a select tag in the HTML, you are dealing with a classic dropdown. If you see anything else, a button or a div or something like that, it's a modern or hidden type. That's it. That one tag determines your entire strategy. Okay, so let's start with the classic. When you see that friendly old select tag, you're in luck, because automation frameworks like Selenium have a specialized tool built just for this. This tool is the select class. Think of it as your best friend for these old school dropdowns. It's designed specifically for them, which means you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It just gives you a bunch of powerful, direct methods to get the job done. And the process is incredibly simple. It's a three-step dance. First, your script finds the drop-down element on the page. Second, you wrap that element up in an object of the special select class. And third, you just use one of its built-in methods to pick your option. Simple as that. And this gives you three main ways to pick an option. You can select it by the actual text the user sees on the screen. You can select it by its value attribute, which is kind of like a hidden ID tag in the HTML. Or you can just select it by its position in the list, the first one, the second one, and so on. You just pick the method that feels the most reliable for your test. But things get a lot more interesting when you inspect an element and that cozy little select tag is nowhere to be found. This is where we step into the world of modern, bootstrap-style dropdowns. And this is the crucial point. For these modern components, that select class we just talked about is completely useless. It was built for a different kind of element. So we've got to throw out the old rules and come up with a new, more manual strategy. This new strategy is all about mimicking what a human user would do. Since there's no special class to help us out, we have to fall back on fundamental automation techniques. And that means we're going to be relying almost entirely on XPath to find and interact with each part of the dropdown. So the process looks something like this. First, your script clicks the main button to make that list of options even appear. Then you find all the individual options, which are usually list items. You loop through that whole list until you find the one with the text you're looking for, and then finally, you click it. Yeah, it's more work, but it's a really solid way to handle these common UI components. Okay, now for our final and most complex species, the hidden dropdown. These are often used for things like auto-suggestions in search boxes, and they have a really unique challenge because the options aren't even there in the HTML until you start typing or clicking. These elements are totally dynamic. The options get loaded on the fly, and here's the super frustrating part. As soon as you try to right-click and inspect them, they just vanish. This is a common pain point for automation engineers, for sure. And that's really the heart of the problem. If the options disappear before you can even look at their HTML, how are you supposed to write the code to automate them? It's like trying to grab smoke. We basically need a way to freeze time. And the solution is to use a browser debugger. You can trigger a pause, and then you quickly open the dropdown. The entire page will just freeze, but with the options now visible. This finally lets you inspect their HTML and write the perfect locator. And from there, the automation strategy is exactly the same as it is for a Bootstrap dropdown.
Okay, we have dissected all three species. Now let's bring it all together into a simple, actionable playbook that you can use every single time you run into a dropdown.
This is your cheat sheet. The next time you see a dropdown, just inspect it. Does it have a select tag? Awesome. Use the select class. No select tag? Okay, it's a Bootstrap one, so you'll use that manual click and find method. And if the options disappear when you try to inspect them, you know the drill. Use a debugger to freeze the page and then treat it like a Bootstrap dropdown. So, if there's just one thing to remember from this whole explainer, it's this. Always, always start by inspecting the element. That one simple action tells you which of the three paths to take, and it will save you hours of frustration.
The humble dropdown teaches us that even the most common parts of a web page can hide some surprising complexity. Mastering it really prepares you for whatever the web decides to throw at you next. So it makes you wonder, what other simple elements have you found to be deceptively tricky?